So when you were 13, you picked up the banjo, right? So basically, when you started playing, you were in a country environment, learning about country music and country instruments, and more or less playing that kind of stuff.
Not necessarily. The music that I listened to before I ever played anything besides Les Paul were old 30s and 40s big band, like Gene Krupa and Benny Goodman with Charlie Christian, that kind of stuff. Kate Kaiser records and all that old stuff you hear from the 30s and the 40s. My folks had all those kind of records plus Western swing.
Now, would you say that not only did you listen to the guitar playing of, let's say, Charlie Christian, but also the horn lines and what the horn players are doing? Did you get some licks from them?
I was influenced by it. I mean, it's when you're a kid trying to learn to play guitar, it's impossible to find out what horn players are doing. However, it is pretty easy to pick up solos off of those kind of records because they don't play
clarinet, Johnny Dodds.
Yeah, they don't play anything that's real outside compared to the way jazz got, like in the 50s. Miles Davis.
Now, would you say some people say that
Charlie Parker was the impossible thing to try to get? Still can't.
especially during that period, like playing all the wrong notes. It was more than just some kind of melodic line. It was going outside and then doing something totally strange that hadn't been done before. It wasn't traditional.
What do you mean? And that
after the Miles Davis, I guess.
In the mid '50s is when bebop started getting heavy. I mean, that started getting outside.
And post-war.
But I never really seriously got into playing jazz till the early '60s, probably around '63. I think I got turned on to Wes Montgomery. Went to New York and bought a pile of Wes Montgomery records, old Riverside records.
Now, would you
spun
do
my
that?
head completely around. And plus, I saw him live a couple of times. He was the most amazing thing there was back then.
Now, would you do that? Would you listen to a particular player and then just learn what he was about, incorporate that into your style, then move on to somebody else? For example, I read somewhere that you thought Lenny Breau was amazing.
Oh,
and you played a show with him.
Freak.
A psychedelic?
Yeah. No, Cellar Door.
Cellar Door.
Well, plus he played with my band a number of times when we used to go to Nashville. He would sit in.
And he was definitely. And did you ever Jimmy Bryan? I heard somewhere that you were in a Jimmy Bryan, the fastest guitarist alive.
I never actually did get into Jimmy Bryan all that much. I had a few Jimmy Bryant records, and I learned those, but I really had no idea how much stuff he had out.
What about
most of the country stuff I'm trying to explain to that my folks had were like Western swing records, which were more toward jazz. I mean, they had a couple of records that were a couple of real hillbilly records, with fiddles and banjos and stuff. They had some of that too. So, and I was influenced by all of them because I liked everything. And when I learned to play, I learned how to play everything. I didn't just learn how to do one thing.
So were you the kind of guy that was playing in his room and just playing every chance he got while other people were out partying? Or
for years. That's all I did from the time I was 9 till I was 16.
Just played
constantly. I bought my first 34 Ford, and I was addicted to hot rods and have been ever since. I haven't practiced much.
So do you think that has something to do with your playing?
Sure.
Cars?
The cars? If I had not have had the car obsession, I probably would have been successful at music.
Why do you say that?
Because I would have tried harder. I honestly never tried real hard to get anywhere playing because I dislike going on the road even now. Because it's boring during the day. You have nothing to do. But if I play around here, I can go home and either restore my house during the day. When that's done, then I can pick up where I left off building all these cars.
Wasn't, for you, the family, then you play with your friends, people you went to high school with, people you've known through the years and played in various bands with. I mean, in a sense, this is your niche. You're a big frog in a small pond,
Yeah, but that means nothing. You can consider
people see
it
you that
but
way.
It doesn't matter to me.
Danny Gatton, I don't, people say, why doesn't Danny Gatton, the man, and this is what certain people have said, the man with $1 million hands, I'm sure you've heard it in some form or another. Why doesn't he just go on the road, be on TV, you know?
That's easy to say.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the record industry behind you making that kind of stuff possible, you can't do it.
Do you want that?
Sure. I mean, that's what it takes to get there. I'm not about to go from here to California and back 100 times playing every dive. From California to Washington trying to build up a reputation. I'm too old to do that.
But you would do that as Danny Gatton, your style, what you're known for.
I would do a tour if it paid enough.
With a band or just...
Oh, sure. I would never play by myself. Never have, never would. Don't want to play with anybody else's band. I've done plenty of that too. Most of the touring I did was either with Roger Miller, whether anybody's heard of him or not, country singer, or Robert Gordon. In Robert Gordon's band I got to play a lot. With Roger Miller I didn't play anything, but it was such a nice first class trip and I got to go every place that it was a wonderful experience.
And that was what, Thumbs Carlisle?
Yeah, Thumbs was in that band for about a year or so.
So was that, so for you it was just an experience maybe?
We had a wonderful time because we played the gambling towns. We played Reno and Atlantic City and Las Vegas and all that, for weeks at a time here and there. And that was fun for a while, but that gets old too.
Yeah.
So but it's a whole different side of life that you wouldn't experience if you didn't get to do that. It's a lot different working there than it is going there.
So I guess with your style, that's so important to incorporate different things, maybe at the same time different experiences,
Sure. I mean, as you get older, you'll find that everything that happens to you
so
contributes to the way you're going to act later on.
Makes sense. So you played with the Fat Boys from 1972 to 1976. Then you had the Redneck Jazz Explosion after that time. Of course, you played with Liz Meyer and Friends before Danny and the Fat Boys.
Actually, after the Fat Boys,
I see Fat
I
Chance
had the first
right
Danny
here.
Gatton band after the Fat Boys. And that was when we did Redneck Jazz. That was like in '77.
And that's Evan Johns.
For a couple of years.
That wrote, so here it says in this Unicorn Times article, it says, let's see, somewhere along the line, guitarist Danny Gatton played in a group called Fat Chance.
That's what the Fat Boys was called when we first got together as a trio.
Okay.
We were all so fat, it was amazing.
Eating pizza.
I only weighed 195 then. I
Uh-huh.
was the skinny guy. The rest of them all weighed 280 and 330.
Well, Bill and Dave Allen.
Yes, we sure did make some ferocious music.
What about Roy Clark? You do a
I
song.
never met him, but I knew his brother and sister real well. Went to school with him. My folks used to take me to see him when I was a kid. In the 50s when he was nobody. And he was amazing.
So he's from Southern Maryland. He grew up.
Oh, he actually lived in the Southeast.
Yeah.
Lived over on around First and Atlantic, Southeast for some years.
You do one of his songs on your latest album, Unfinished Business.
Fingers on Fire.
Fingers on Fire. And,
which he stole from Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
And Roy Clark's version is nothing at all like the original Fingers on Fire. But I like Roy's version better. So.
In terms of your, I guess, rockabilly or rock and roll, I don't know what to call it.
Big difference.
Yeah, what do you draw the line between rockabilly and rock and roll?
Well, if we go back to the mid-'50s and we play a Gene Vincent record, we'll hear nothing but guitars and guys going, where the hubba hubba with echo. That's rockabilly. If you put on a Little Richard record, you'll hear horns and stuff, and you'll hear him screaming. And that's rock and roll, or rhythm and blues.
So players like Scotty Moore, James Burton, any influence from those players?
Plenty.
Lots.
Those two. And, what are the guys who played with Gene Vincent? Johnny Meeks or Cliff Gallup. Those three were very influential on me. Plus, there were a lot of pop guitar players back then and jazz players. I can't even think of all these people were. I'd have to go home and look through the old record collection
I guess you
to
could
find out who they were. Because a lot of times I forget that I was influenced by something, then I'll dig out an old record and put it on and go, aha, that's where that came from subconsciously
Uh-huh.
this many years later. That still happens.